Welcome back to another episode of the Cameras and Coffee podcast. Today I'm sitting here with Miranda Eorio from Miranda Eorio Photography. And today we're going to talk about how photographers are ruining the client experience. So buckle up because we've got some hard truths today. So welcome, Miranda.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very exciting to be here. I'm ecstatic to talk about all of these things that we might not want to talk about all the time. So
Yes.
it'll be nice to shine a light on some of this stuff.
For sure, for sure. So before we jump in, tell me, where are you coming from?
So I am in central Pennsylvania,
Okay.
over in Lancaster, which people get mad when we call it central Pennsylvania because we're technically south central Pennsylvania, but we like to get in on that Google SEO stuff too. So, the
Oh,
central
yeah.
PA is not going anywhere.
I love it. Love it. And then, second, are you a coffee drinker?
Yes, yes, I am. We actually did our Starbucks run this morning
Oh, love it.
before hopping on here. Uh,
Love it.
yes, I'm a huge fan.
I had to wait to drink my coffee because I had a dentist appointment, and now now my teeth are starting to feel gritty afterwards. But I'm like, you know what?
Yes.
I needed it. I needed it today. Um, so yeah, we're gonna get into it, and I can't wait to talk about all the things. But first I'd love to dive into like how you got started in photography. I love hearing everyone's story on this. So tell me, how did you get into it and what is it that you primarily do?
So, just like everybody, I feel like everybody and their mom, I got into photography because I wanted to capture more memories of my daughter when she was little. She's now 9 years old, and we have captured so many of them that she's actually tired of it by now. But classic
Right.
photographer kid syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was, maybe 8 years ago that I picked up my
Mm,
first camera and I started taking really bad pictures. And then as time went on, my skills grew and grew, thank God. Um, and I tried a little bit of everything, pet photography, family photography,
mm,
weddings. What I was really passionate about though was families and working with
mm.
those just those types of clients and helping them create and continue that legacy.
Yeah, that's good. And that's kind of how, I mean, I feel like you kind of have to go through everything to decide what you're passionate about, honestly. I
Mhm.
mean, for a lot of us, it starts with our kids. Um, and we're like, oh, we're a kid photographer. But yes, it is so true though about the whole kid syndrome, photographer syndrome, where they're just like, I don't want to be in a picture. My husband gets that. He's like, nope, I'm a candid person. Don't make me look at the camera. I'm like, whatever. Like, just look at the
Yes,
camera
it's
for one, and then
mhm.
the rest can be candid. It's just kind of funny, but yeah, that's good, and I can't wait to dive into it. I kind of did the opposite, where I started with a lot of families and found eventually that my passion were people who could stand still.
Yeah,
So
we're
kudos to
covering
you.
weddings. Like,
I still do families here and there, and I'll do them for like my wedding clients. I
mhm.
definitely will treat them to that because I want to continue like the relationship, but yeah, it's not what I'm passionate about. So I can't wait to talk about this because I'm coming out of it and you're just in the thick of it. So yeah, let's kind of dive into that a little bit. Um, but what do you think made you want to educate photographers on like
Mm.
this topic necessarily?
My experience with Google, and that's kind of
Mm.
like, I don't even know what she means by saying that. Um, it's it's like, so I never invested in like a photography coach to help me figure
Mm.
out what I need to do to get better when it comes to posing and lighting. So I invested in a couple courses and those were huge for me. But before I
Mm-hmm.
did that, I was Googling everything. I
Mm.
was like, um, best poses for families, or how do I make more money as a family photographer? Little things like that. And I started to Google so much that I ended up having all the answers that I was looking up, but then I was stuck because I didn't know what else to look up. I didn't know where I was lacking in that success,
Mm.
and I didn't have
Yeah.
somebody who knew what they were doing to walk me through it. So I wasn't looking up, how to calculate your cost of business, or
Mm.
how to create an ideal client experience. Like, I wasn't looking up any of that because I didn't know. So, knowing that there was that gap kind of for
Yeah.
other family photographers is like what made me want to get into education and say, you know what? I can hold your hand, walk you through this entire process, and feel good about it, knowing that you're
Mm,
getting what you need to grow your income so that you can support your family and your lifestyle. And
yeah.
that is so important and rewarding to me that I just kind of like hit the ground running and I don't want to stop.
No, that's good. Yeah, I know for me, like, I think it was back in like 2016, the first time I really realized like photography courses were out there.
Hmm.
Shout out to Jenna Kutcher. She's the course queen.
Yeah.
Back when she used to do a lot of photography, she doesn't do it anymore. She's more of a business and
Hmm.
entrepreneurial, is that even a
Yes.
word? Um,
It is
expert
today.
and kind of like coaching on that and kind of talking about
Hmm.
life, and which is great for her. I love that.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I
but
love
I
her
learned
podcast.
so much from her and continued, and it's kind of what drove me to want to mentor other photographers who
Hmm.
don't know these things exist or don't know the ins and outs. And I mean, even from then, things have changed in the trajectory of how to do business, you know?
Hmm.
And then
Absolutely.
there's photographers out there that don't understand, like, they're learning from what they see, and the world is huge. So they don't understand, like, they understand their bubble, but they don't understand how everything works. And I'm a huge big picture person. Like, I got to figure out the ins and outs and everything and see the surrounding. And I'm always interested, like, talking to other photographers, especially out of state, where it's like, well, what is that for you? Because
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes we can get so blindsided by what's in our own environment that we don't understand the outside perspective. So it's good to kind of talk about this, um, and kind of go from there. So I think a lot of this that we're going to talk about, in the client experience, a lot of it has to do with communication, right? Would you
Yes.
say?
And
Yes.
absolutely. Like communication before the session, before they're actually our clients, during the session, at the end of the session.
Yeah.
And it's not just, you walk in, you shoot, or you photograph your clients, you walk away, and then you're done. Like
Yeah.
that is offering them such a small and un I want to say like an unenthusiastic like client experience, and that's the opposite of
Mm,
what you want to be doing. So it's
yeah.
communication is absolutely key.
And I think too, like, some of us as photographers, and I know I've been victim of this, is we think that if we say it once or we put it on our website or put it in our contract, that everyone has
Yes.
read it and they should know because I
Mhm.
put it in my contract.
Yes.
And
Oh my
it's
gosh.
like, no, like, and I'm a big believer in the foundation of three. And I've spoken on this on the
Mm,
podcast before,
love
but
it.
a minimum of three times something important needs to be mentioned, especially
Hmm.
when it comes to like delivery of your gallery. Like,
Mm,
you tell them ahead of time or immediately after the session, like face to face
mhm.
in an email, and possibly like I mean, obviously you'd have it in your contract and things like that. But um, yeah, the communication piece is huge. So, where would you say would be like the first thing that you notice that photographers are really ruining that client experience just from the get go?
Okay. So I um probably one of the biggest things that I've seen, and this is not for everybody. I'm not saying, oh, every single photographer is doing this. Because I've seen a lot that, are doing it so right. But on Facebook, and I know a lot of us are part of photography Facebook groups for one reason or another. Um, when you put in your contract things like, I have sharing rights to our images, and this is kind of like
Mm,
a really big one for me, but I have sharing rights to the images that we take during our session. And then the family reaches out and says, hey, for whatever reason, we don't feel comfortable with you sharing on social media.
mm-hmm,
Could you just not do that for our session? For me, the answer, and I've had clients do that for my past mini sessions, just last month, actually. Um, and I say, yes, you know what? I
mm-hmm.
understand, I respect that. But so many other photographers are saying, like, well, they're my images. I capture them. I'm going to share them how I want to. Um, And I see a lot of posts on Facebook saying, hey, what do I do? This is what the client wants, but I need to share these images for X, Y, and Z reasons. Um, I think that is probably the fastest way to ruin an experience for your clients. Now,
Yeah.
I totally understand that it sucks. You don't, and I,
Yeah.
the clients that asked me not to share their images were one of my favorite sessions for my entire Christmas minis. And I was so
Yeah.
bummed. I'm like, you know what? But that's on me. That's for me to deal with and handle and not for me to put on the
Yeah.
client. Um, so if,
I agree. It's like a big bummer, but at the same time, like, it's their right, you know? And
yeah,
I mean, you
it
think
could be
of
a
all the
safety
celebrities out
issue.
there who, like, their kids
Mm-hmm.
cannot be photographed and they have that right until they're 18, you know? And um if someone's looking for a great contract, and I have affiliates with the Law Tog, and I've had
Mm,
Rachel Ranky
yes.
on the podcast before, and they have great contracts for this if someone's looking for one. But there is, like, you require a model release, but there is something where it's like, yeah, you do have the right to use these images as long as you're not selling them and things like that. The legal, and don't quote me on that because I don't know the legal out of it, but it's a respect thing for your clients. And if you're going to go around
Mm,
that and do it anyway, you're going to lose those clients, and then you're going to lose future clients because of it.
mm-hmm.
And so the best way you can serve those individuals is by respecting their privacy. That's so
Yeah,
true. Um, I
absolutely.
have that with family members where I'm like, I'd love to share this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Like, it's a bummer, but there's other ways you can feature stuff, like have a
Yes.
model call or something like that to
Mm-hmm.
feature mini sessions and so forth. And have them sign a model release and use those images. But yeah, that's so true. Like, that is it's a huge bummer for both parties, because yeah, that's something you got to respect for sure.
But no, you're right. And when it comes to like, well, what happens if this was a model call and they're asking me not to share their images? Well, we're going to dial it back again, that communication is huge for any type of
Mhm.
relationship. Like, hey, this is a model call. We are using these for the sole purposes of sharing your images. And then, um, you either get these free images or you pay like a slightly smaller like sitting fee or something like that. But
Mhm.
again, it's like that communication from the get-go is so
Yeah.
important. But also respecting your clients, because like you said, you're going to be losing them as clients and other
Mhm.
clients, well, their immediate friend circle too. If people love to talk about the bad experiences that they have over the good ones, which
Mhm.
is sucky, but it's just human nature. Like, we just talk about that a little bit more than the good ones. So you don't want your name to be brought up on that type of like topic of conversation,
Oh,
because
for sure.
their immediate friends have other immediate friends, and then it just grows and grows, and you just don't want that kind of I don't want to say publicity, but you just don't want it.
Mhm. No, that's so true. Um, because it does spread, and especially, and this is coming from me, who I have a lot of my business comes from referrals. And I think that's
Yes.
huge, especially growing in like the family photography industry. I mean, even if they like share it themselves, that's their right.
Hmm.
If they don't, because I think photographers too, in the retrospect, where they're like, they didn't want me to share something. And I actually had a client do this where I'm like, they asked me not to share, and I told them I wouldn't. But then I'm now seeing them share them. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I kind of chuckle because I'm like, is it just they don't want a larger audience seeing them, or whatnot? But it really isn't up to me. And I shake my head, but at the same time, it's like that's their right, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so I just have to brush it off, and I think that's something we grow thicker skin over time when it comes to
Yes.
um having these clients. So it's so
Hmm.
true. Um, what is something else that you're finding, um, and maybe there's like a method of what you like to go through when talking about some of these things, when it comes to the client experience, but um, what is something you're finding that photographers are doing that they shouldn't be doing, or can be negatively affecting their business?
So there's a lot. Um, but let me see. I guess we'll start with a big I don't want to say it's a controversial topic, but it's kind of like, well, this is just how it's supposed to go, right? I do not raise my prices at the beginning of the year. Um, and I encourage you, like as photographers, to consider not doing that as well. I was talking to Coley James, um, but like 3 or 4 months ago when she had brought this like idea up, and I'm just like, oh my God, Coley, I think you might be a genius. But it was to raise your prices during like the busiest time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So during October, September, October, raise your prices then because you're already getting, that full calendar. People are booking you. You're not worried or thinking, oh my God, well, what happens if like people aren't booking me right now? Because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
exactly when people are. Like that's what everybody
That fear
wants.
sets in for sure because
Ooh.
they definitely are like, they raise it at the beginning of the year. And this is more like Midwest thing because
Mhm.
when it comes to like, um, kind of like out west, their probably prime season is during the winter when it's cooler. But um, for us over here, like it's so true because
Mhm.
let's say we raise them in January in the winter and we're not booking for a couple months and we're sitting there like, why is nobody booking? And then we have
Yeah.
this fear of like, oh, maybe I need to bring my prices back down. But then you're
And then a
like,
lot,
I have so much
yes.
business. I don't have time to change things in the fall because I'm just swamped. But like,
Mhm.
it's so true. Like, total key. But
It's
how do you feel when
hard.
it comes to like raising as you go? Like the more and more clients you pick, raising as
Yes.
you go. What are your
Yes.
thoughts on that?
I love that, especially for photographers who are looking to raise their prices quickly. So in like,
Mhm.
let's say a span of 6 months, you want to raise your prices by $300. Okay,
Mhm.
that seems like a lot, and that's not possible. You can't just jump from like a $200 session to a $500 session like that. And you might be right. You probably shouldn't just do it like it's night and day. But if every client you book at that point, you raise your prices $50,
Mhm.
$25, $47, whatever, for every single client that you book, you are quickly going to hit that 200 that you're currently at and raising that to
Mhm.
$500. So it's like, it's just a small incremental change, and nobody's really going to notice it too much. Um,
Yeah.
but I love that way as well. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. If you're looking to grow quickly, like to raise your package prices or collection prices quickly, that is
Mhm.
definitely the way to go.
So what
Absolutely.
would you say then when it comes to your website, like putting your pricing on your website? Because I think everyone thinks like everyone's talking to each other, you know? But what would
Yeah.
you say about like being transparent and then con- like continually raising that on your website? What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. I am very transparent with my prices. Personally, I have all of my prices and my collections on my website. So collection one, this is what you get. It starts at $700. Here's collection two, my most popular one. This is what you get. It starts at five. And then here's three, like the bare minimum, and that starts at I think like 350. So I'm very transparent, and I've noticed that that helps me get qualified inquiries and qualified
Mm.
leads because, and I do not hate the just putting your, hey, this is what it starts at like this investment or this experience starts at $400. That's all that you need to have. That is like the bottom line,
Mhm.
because people aren't going to be looking at your website and saying, oh, I wonder if she's like a $200 photographer, or oh god, she's got to be 1200. She's way out of my price range. I'm not even going to like inquire. It allows
Mhm.
those qualified leads to enter into like your system and like your workflow, and that's only
Mhm.
going to do better for you.
And I think too, like we as consumers are more of we want to know the pricing right away. And I think
Mhm.
photographers can get so they can get so self-conscious of this because they're like, oh, they just want to know my prices right away. And it's like, well, yeah, like it's how you're presenting. But if you're leading them on a path once they come to your website
Mm,
and then they're like,
yes.
okay, I want to see how much she costs. Is she even in my price range or he? Um, that they want to know that right away before they even dig deeper, you know? Or
Yeah.
it could even be months before and they're like, I really want this person to take my fall photos, but
Hmm.
I need to plan ahead. And if they're like inquiring and they're like, what is your pricing? They might not book then in there, or you're going to get more where everyone says, oh, you're too expensive. So you kind of need to like have it transparent so you know like the people that you're coming through, you're spending your most of your time on via email and all of that, can see that right up front and know, okay, this is what it is.
Hmm.
How do you feel about like, do you let people know that your pricing could change, or do you just leave that completely silent,
Mm.
like website wise?
So I've done both. And for me personally, one is better than the other. But overall, there is not one that works better for, and this is just for what works best for me. I'm not saying it's not
Mhm,
going to work best for other people. But for me, not saying anything and just doing like those slight increases every time I book a
mhm,
client when I'm looking to take that, my $200 package and bring it up to five. That
yeah,
has been the easiest for me.
mm,
I and I feel so bad I cannot remember who said it. I'll figure out who said it. But letting your clients know, like, hey guys, as of October 3rd, my prices are going to change from, 200 to $400 or 200 to that full $500. So if you want to get in at this price, book it now.
mm,
I have tried that method in the past when I was just looking to start raising them up to like two, three, $400
mhm,
packages, collections. And it worked. I got bookings immediately. And then I got some people who are just like, you know what, we're not in the space to do that right now, but we will come back to you later after you raise your prices. And they did. For
mm,
me personally, it's easier and there's just less steps when it comes to just automatically changing the prices on your website, and not mentioning it or not sending out like a mass email, because especially during busy season, am I going to
mhm,
like add more to my plate? Like I really don't want to. But if you're a newer photographer starting out and just looking to get like that quick cash injection into like your business, that
mhm.
might be a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I can see that too. And a lot of times it really depends on like how much you've accumulated as a following. I think the
Hmm.
biggest problem that you might see is those returning families every year. They're the
Yeah.
ones that might be, and that's where you could really like put that communication in there where you say, here's my specific email list of past clients, and you don't have to tell people for the future, but at least let those past clients know, say, hey, I'm going to raise my prices. Do you want photos this year? Just so
Hmm.
you know, I will raise my prices. So if you want to get in on last year's prices or whatever, now is the time to book. Otherwise, just know they're going to be higher when you come to me later.
Yes.
I
And
think
there's
that's
that
key because,
again,
yeah, because
communication.
I
That's so
think,
important.
oh yeah, because I know like I've had photographer friends where we've gone on and they're just so worried about like the surprises. Because I find when I had, and this is when I was doing families, when you have families that come back to you, they know your process from before, so they just expect that nothing has changed. So they're not reading through your contract, they're not reading, I mean maybe an email, but like they're just clicking and picking things because they're like, yeah, I want her again.
Hmm.
um and so they're the ones that come back later and say, I did not realize, like, if for some reason, let's say you don't do digitals aren't included, like the
Hmm.
digital downloads,
Right.
um in a future session, they're the ones that are going to come back and say, I did not realize those weren't included anymore. Is there anything you can do? And I have friends that are fearful that they're going to go and trash them on the internet. Like, and I'm just like, you know what? So what if they do? Like, how, in that's a whole nother topic. But I always say, like, what, let's go back to like how you communicated. So how did you communicate to them? Because if you know they're a returning client, that's, and you haven't said anything, that's when you need to take that moment and be like, just a heads up, my
Yeah.
prices have increased, or this is no longer included. And I think it's so important to say that to past clients, um, even though it's not your fault they're not reading, but still, I think it's a common courtesy and it's
Hmm.
going to improve the client experience. and they're going to know, because I've had ones, they're like, oh, it's my fault, I didn't realize it, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, but then there's ways that I over deliver in other ways, um
Hmm.
because I want them to come back, but I'm not going to give them I'm not going to give away my business. Like, I still have to make a profit in the end. I still
Yeah.
have to support my family. So there's things like that that I think are key when it comes to that communication piece as well, when it comes to changes um, from past clients. So
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. And I do want to like let everybody know that it's okay if your past clients see your new pricing and they say, "Hey, we can't afford this anymore,"
Hmm.
or it's just too expensive for us. Now, that is nothing against you as a photographer. It is nothing
Oh
against
yeah.
them as a family. It is just that it doesn't work for the budget, and they realize that, and that is a okay. Now,
Hmm.
when my clients do say things like that, I offer, and I always offer payment plans for everybody, but I
Oh
bring
yeah.
up again, hey, I have a payment plan. If you want to put, 15% down now, we'll do like a monthly thing, or we'll do whatever works for you until your balance is paid off before your session. And then we'll just go from there. So making those
Yeah.
payments in, smaller chunks is so much
Yeah.
easier and manageable for them. Sometimes you don't even realize it's offered. So
Yeah.
open communication. It's
Exactly.
yeah. Now I did have one family specifically. They did probably like 4 or 5 mini sessions with me a year when I was offering 5 mini sessions a year, which I don't do
Wow.
anymore. Yeah, I mean we all grow in different ways. That's
Yes.
fine.
Oh yeah.
um, and they told me that $135 was like their breaking point. Like they could not invest $135 in a 30-minute session when they do that like 6 times a year. And
Hmm.
to me, I was just like, but they're not seeing any of the value. And I tried to talk them into it. Like,
Hmm.
you don't see the value. Let me tell you what this value, let me shove this value down your throat. Let
Oh
me
yeah.
like break it down. And it did nothing, but you know what? It pissed her off. And she
Hmm.
thought that I was just being like really pushy and like, I was just accusing her of being cheap. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that it wasn't my intention. So I never ever try to do that. I'm like, you know what? You see my value or you don't. You can afford it or you
Hmm.
can't. And I will be here, no matter what you choose. I'm always supporting my clients. Um, Even if they're not my clients anymore. It's what you
For
have to
sure,
do.
for sure. And that's huge for me too, because there's two parts to this, because there's a part of, you may, like, if you're raising your prices, you're trying to move to a tier to be more sustainable so that you can
Mhm.
be more full time, or make, either, like, if you've quit your 9 to 5 and you're coming into this photography thinking you're going to match your salary, like, you got to think of it like, I got to make that happen. And
Mhm.
you got to decide, like, am I going to move with the inflation of my current clients, or am I
Mhm.
going to start reaching a new demographic of clients? And
Yes.
sometimes it is sad when you have to let those clients go,
Mm.
but you're saying no to them and saying yes to new potential clients that understand the value of your
Mhm.
current or raised prices. um and hopefully you're growing through all of that also, like, your style, your photography is getting better. I mean, we all change, we all get better, hopefully, over
Yeah.
time. um but that's so true. And I think that's something that, you know sometimes we forget. And I think we're so fearful, like, because this is a job where we don't have consistent income. It's something
Yeah.
where we just have to, like, hope people are going to book us. And so we're, like, worried, like, am I going to be able to make my monthly business payments? And I think that's
Yeah.
something we get so scared about, of, like, making past or potential clients upset and not book us. Um, which is so great when you bring up, like, yeah, as you're booking in your busiest season, raise your prices, because that's where you're not having that time where you're, like, fearful of making ends meet, basically.
Mhm.
um you're just increasing, as because I do that with weddings, where I'm like, I get enough weddings where I feel confident in where I'm at for the following year, so then I raise it a little bit more, because I'm like, I'm in so demand, like, I'm gonna have to use other services then to help me
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
get this turnaround faster. So I not only have to do that, but how am I going to make a profit with it as well? So that's where you continually raise your prices. Um, And I think the fear comes in where people are like, photographers are so expensive, or there's like um TikToks or memes or whatever. It's like my photographer got paid for this much out of like 1 hour of their time. And it's like, you really don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I can only take this many sessions because this is how much work is on the back end. And I feel like we all feel like we need to shout that at them. But, we shouldn't have to
Yes.
explain ourselves. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, when you have a doctor that's going to charge you this, you have insurance or something like that that's going to cover the remainder of it. Because I've seen it where they're like, I don't even pay my doctor that. And it's like, well, there's more that goes into that, But
You're
also,
not the only way that they're getting paid
yes.
for their
But
services.
it's funny because and not to make this too religious, but I think it's funny because it's like how people view a pastor. Like, they do this all for like working 1 day a week. And it's like, you don't understand like the other 7 day or the other six
Like, yeah,
days.
yeah.
Like,
And
you can't.
teachers too. It's
Oh
like
yeah, for
they're not
sure.
just working, that 9 to 3:30. Like they have to plan out like their lesson plans too. They have to.
For
There's
sure,
so
for
much that
sure.
goes into it. Like we're telling other photographers like what really goes into it. Like they don't already know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but it
Yeah,
is frustrating. You're right, and I
yeah.
do see. And this is like a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, just a small one. But like I see this really long message getting shared over and over and over by other photographers about like not charging an arm and a leg, and we need people to stop asking for them to do that because I don't charge an arm and a leg. That is like $565,000 or something like that. And then they have like this really long message that says like this is why we do what we do. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of clients that I work with, my ideal clients, they're going to see that and they're going to be like, you're right, like you are worth, all of this and more. But a lot of other people are just going to be like rolling their eyes at it, just like
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like you're just trying to, prove something that isn't true. And so I feel like a lot of the time that falls on like deaf ears. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, don't work yourself up so much saying like you don't value me and this is why you should value me, because they're not going to care. It's, you're
Yeah,
just upsetting yourself, which sucks because I want everybody to understand everybody's value and their worth
yeah.
I don't want to say their worth, but their value as photographers. But I do see a lot of people getting so worked up over it, and I just take that breath, just
Well,
let
it's
these
it's
people
an
go.
emotional job because we're there to
Ugh.
capture emotion that we wear our heart on
Mhm.
our sleeves in that way. And so we are worried that like something's going to be perceived the wrong way, or
Mhm.
it's going to come off the wrong way, or they're going to backlash at us. And we're
Yes.
I want to say, like, a lot of us, we are very self-conscious and
Mm.
insecure. And when we
Oh,
don't get that
yes.
praise, I mean, it comes to like when people say, like, why didn't you share your images online? And it's like, who cares? Like, it's their images. And you
Mhm.
start feeling insecure because you haven't heard back from your client about like
Oh.
how they liked them or whatnot. And we can go down that whole path on a whole
Oh
nother
yeah. No,
episode, but
haven't
um
been there.
definitely it comes down to the insecurity, but raising our prices is definitely a mindset. Like, you have to change. I mean, it was
Mm.
really a struggle for me to even increase my wedding prices like $1,500. I'm like, nobody's going
Mhm.
to pay that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's ridiculous. Oh my god,
I
it's so
know. I'm
expensive,
like,
and it's like, but
those
it's
people are
not.
out there.
It's
They just
not.
have to find you and you have to figure out how to find them. So there's a whole thing on
Yes.
that. Um
And how
so
do they
yeah,
find
let's
you? They
yeah.
find
Yeah.
SEO.
Yes.
SEO, like,
But I don't
but
have
it's
time for that. No.
important. I yeah. Yeah, I'd be lying if I
That's
didn't say
another
that
story as well.
and if I didn't hear that before. So,
For real. Oh
ugh,
my goodness.
that's
Yes.
too funny.
Oh, for real. So let's kind of dive in. Like, let's let's take a side seat for this whole pricing thing because we could go on that for
Right.
that with like for hours.
Ever, forever.
Let's kind of go like through the do's and don'ts when it comes to working with families. So let's dive kind of more into that family oriented stuff, the meat of that. So what might be keeping photographers or getting them stuck when it comes to booking more clients? What should they like leave behind last year and go forward into 2024?
Okay, so I have a couple, and they're going to fall at like different stages of the client experience because
Mm,
the client experience can be anything from getting the inquiry to delivering, well, really the after delivery marketing. So there's like 6 different stages in there. We're going to jump around a little bit. So, first off, we are going to get your email templates set up ASAP. I
Mm.
don't care if you buy them from somebody else, I don't care if you make them yourself. However, you do it using your brand voice, just get those responses ready to go, because you do not want to be sitting there for every inquiry that comes along
Oh yeah.
typing out this same message. Like my email for inquiries, they're kind of long. They're probably, I don't even want to say 1,000 words. I don't even know what 1,000 words look like in front of me right now. But like it's a
Depends on
lot.
what size font.
Yeah, on yeah. It's like, but it's a good chunk. And there's like
Hmm.
clickable links and things like that. And if I had to write that out every single time,
Oh yeah.
burnout, burnout, burnout.
Yep.
So personally, I use Dubsado, but before,
Hmm.
which is a CRM, but before I was using that, I would put my email templates um, into Google Docs. And you know what?
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with starting out like that. There's nothing wrong with doing it now, in the future, whatever. As long as you have those email templates for whatever
Well, and I
situation.
think Google has a plugin where you can have canned emails and you can just like click the drop down and select them. Because I used that
Shut up.
before I had Honeybook and before I had Dubsado, I used that to like just respond to emails so I'm not typing everything out.
That is so funny. I did not, and I'm in my
Yeah.
Gmail like every single day. I had no idea. Well, you learn
Yeah.
something every day. This is great. I'm going to be playing with that later.
Yes. So if you're not into the moment where you're ready to put in a platform, a client resource management, like, yeah, you
Yes.
can totally use canned emails through something like Google for
Yes.
sure.
And that is okay. That doesn't make you any less of a photographer, any less of a
Yeah.
business person by choosing not to use a CRM. Um, but email templates, it's going to save
Hmm.
you hours and hours, like a week, a month, bi-weekly. It's just going to save you
Mm.
time, and time is more important than money in my opinion, because you can make as much money as you want to in the world, but you can never make up that much time.
Oh, yeah.
Also, another side piece, so I'm not even going to go into that, but your time is valuable and you just need to start realizing that sometimes.
Yeah.
um, but yes, so that's in like the very beginning. Email templates, so important. um, let's talk about like during the family session. So many of us,
Yeah.
like when we work with kiddos, and we work with toddlers, we work with babies, and surprise surprise, they are not always like picture perfect. They are not always smiles and giggles and like ready to go, so happy to like listen to what you have to say as a photographer. It's a stressful
Mm.
situation for them too.
Yeah.
So when they start to whine and fuss and cry and just have breakdowns,
Mm.
mom and dad, and I just say mom and dad, they're, mom, dad, dad, any type of family dynamic, but in this example, we'll use mom and dad, are getting frustrated. They're flustered. They're like, oh
Mm.
my God, this is so embarrassing. We as photographers and as people, as moms, as parents and dads, we might want to say, like, go to that child and comfort them and say, oh, honey, it's okay. Well, they don't want to hear that from us. They don't care. They don't even know who we are. So
Hmm.
instead of turning that like focus and attention on the child who's having a hard time, it is so important to turn that focus to the parents and saying, hey,
Mm.
mom, dad, like this is so normal. You are doing a great job. I'm here to
Yeah.
support you. This happens every time. Even if it doesn't happen every time, just lie to them. Just, you know what, like,
Yes.
it's your kids, and I have like almost 3 of them. I'm like, kids suck sometimes. I will not sugarcoat it. Like, and it's
Hmm.
okay for the parents to know that. Like, you're
Yeah.
not doing anything wrong as parents, and that's going to give them more, like, they're going to be and feel more supported. They're going to um, feel that, like, that love that comes from you, and that is going to make them feel more confident during the session. They probably won't
Hmm.
even remember what you said 20 minutes later, but they're going to remember how you made them feel and how you made them feel
Hmm.
confident and supported and loved. Um, and that is so, so very important, especially during stressful situations with kids.
For sure. And I know when I was doing families, like that's the first thing I say when we start a session. Like, hey, I'm going to let them warm up. Let's just play. Because
Hmm.
you can't just get them and be like, okay, let's all smile. Like some
Yeah.
families might, not all families do. And I've
My family will not.
photographed a lot. it also, as a parent with a kid with special needs, like that's just not going to happen. Like we have to warm up. And so I think that's like huge when it comes to that. And just saying, like, just throw everything out of the wind, like out the window of what you think you should do in a session. And let me
Yep.
tell you, we're going to go by their lead. We're
Yeah.
going to let them play. And then in a moment where they've warmed up to me a little bit, then I can ask you, like, hey, can we go do this a second? And then we'll get a shot where it's more, you know, um, like a pose shot or whatnot. And I think that all
Hmm.
comes down to like communicating too. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like on your website of talking about your type of style, like this is how I handle a family session. Like I
Hmm.
don't expect you to just be models and sit there and smile at me. Like we're
Oh,
gonna warm your kids up and then see what we can get, because kids are kids and you need to let them be kids and not expect them to perform. And if you expect them to perform, you're going to be greatly disappointed when it doesn't happen. And then everyone's going to be mad. And then you're going to look back at these photos and be like, oh, I hated how I felt in that session. And I
hmm.
remember when we were
Yeah.
yelling at each other, and you're not going to want to put those photos on your wall. Like,
Yeah.
because you're going to just
So
remember about
true.
how angry you were at each other or,
Hmm.
so for sure, for sure.
Ab- Abso-flippin-lutely. We recently had our own family session, and like I still had to shoot my kids like the look, like just knock it off. And we don't hit my kids, so I don't know why I like raise my hand to them, but I'm just like, knock it off.
Just the threat.
Oh, yes. And they're just like, empty threats, mother. And I'm just like, whatever.
Yes.
But no, so, and I only had to shoot them like the look a couple times, but like overall it was such an enjoyable experience because we
Hmm.
had that support from the photographer. And all of my training as a photographer went out the window, and I just like I forgot everything. But she
Hmm.
was there to like, it's okay, this is what we do, like, kids, I'm here for you, but mom and dad, like, I got you. And it
Hmm.
was so incredibly wonderful. And she has 3 kids
Yeah.
herself, so she like really understands. Um,
Yeah.
but just kind of seeing that from the client point of view, like, this is what I do for my clients, and like I know that I'm doing this right because of how this made me feel so supported. And um,
Yeah.
just I just knew that I'm like, you know what, this I have been doing this right for so many years, thank God. So
Yeah, right. Yes, for sure. So what else would you say are things that like we should do during either a session or like communicating or like post session, that kind of stuff?
yes, so like the entire client experience. Probably one of the biggest things that I see um, is that we are overwhelming and overloading our clients with options.
Mm,
So when I call my sessions, and people normally like, oh, I hate calling, like it's so terrible. Even though it takes, time and it's part of your workflow, part of
mm-hmm,
the process, I actually really enjoy it. Um, I really highly suggest, and I can't suggest this enough, calling maybe one pose
mm,
per, like, just one pose in that gallery. So if mom and dad are like, head to head, nose to nose, or whatever, you're gonna be like click, 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 click. Especially with kids, they're
mm-hmm.
always moving, they're always doing
Yeah.
something. Only include like one of those images. Now, if there's like two that are like so similar to each other and you can't decide like which one, pick your kind of favorite, put that in
Mm,
color, pick your second favorite, put it in black and white, include both of them in the gallery. That still counts. But it's so important to not overwhelm our clients
mm,
because they're going to get like, it's like sales paralysis or something, but it's like,
mm-hmm.
paralysis. They're going to stop. They're going to be like, you know what, I'm going to come back to this later. And then they
Yeah.
might not come back to it for a while, but that is going to like go into their experience. They're going to think, oh God, like I can't choose. I can't do this. I don't know what to do. And then they're going to remember that during the process and be like, you know what? I didn't feel as supported there. Or I just kind of felt like, like, oh. So it's so important to remember that we need to make it easier for our clients overall. So
Yeah.
good.
No, and in the way that I work around that is I do in my galleries, I have like a Kara's favorites folder that I have at the top, and then I have like a full
Ooh.
gallery because I am an overshooter by all means.
Okay.
So the Kara's favorites folder is like I curate the what I think are the best of the best. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been hearing from clients over and over again like those were all my favorites too. And so that's always good to hear because I'm always like, do you like the same ones I like? Do you not? And so
Yeah.
I do that and then I have a full gallery because otherwise I get emails back where they're like, were their eyes open in this one or whatever? Or did you happen to get this? And then you're going back to check your raws. So like
Yeah.
that's kind of my way around it, to each your own. And I know like
Yeah.
especially for mini sessions, like you don't need to over deliver, but I am
Yes.
an over deliverer.
But
But
that there are benefits to that. It's okay. It's not end of the world. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
you run a successful photography business as an over deliverer, so
yeah,
you get it. It's
yeah,
possible. It's okay.
yeah. And I think there's like ways when you learn from like your clientele, like what is the better way.
Mhm.
But I do find like a lot of times I find my clients are overwhelmed. And another way I do that, because for my senior sessions, unless they purchase all of my digitals, because I don't include in my seniors their digital downloads. But if they don't purchase those, I only give them a window of time for their gallery. So I say, you get
Yes.
30 days. And
Hmm.
if you want to purchase all of your digitals, I will open that up and you get it for a year to like download all your images. And I think
Yes.
sometimes, and I don't know if this is just an American thing or what, but we are procrastinators and we wait till the very last second and we get overwhelmed. It's almost like that ADHD mentality. Like there's so much
Mhm.
overwhelm that we just say, I won't deal with this right now.
Shut it
And then you
off.
forget about it and you don't go to it. So like culling one image per pose, like that's a great idea. There's also great ideas like the time limit and things like that
Hmm.
where it's like, how can you
Yes.
help your clients to give a little nudge to say, these are what I think are great. And as a photographer, like you see the vision,
Hmm.
and sometimes there's clients they just don't understand, and the limit on the amount of images sometimes is better for them, you know.
Hmm.
Because I do get it where they're like, oh my gosh, there's so many. How am I going to choose? And so there's that too. So it goes both ways. So yeah, I
Hmm.
love that works for you and that works for your students and things that um,
Yeah.
do those. So
And again,
that's
it
great.
is like when I talk about things, it's because I've seen success for myself with them and I've seen success
Yeah.
in other people. And it's not to say like that the way anybody else is doing it is
Oh
wrong,
yeah.
like by any means. Because sometimes people are just like, well, that's going to work for you. But, and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
you totally, totally fair, totally right. And there are a million ways to do things right. A
Oh yeah.
million.
For
Like,
sure.
and but I do, teach others how to do it that I have personally seen that success in front of my eyes. Like,
Mm,
not just for me, but like for others too. So, but yeah, a million ways to do it. Just because you're not doing it that way doesn't mean you're doing it wrong.
for sure. So what would you say are some things that photographers like those were kind of like the do's, like you should do those. What would you
Hmm.
say are the things they shouldn't do? Like don't do this.
Uh, well, don't be jerks to your client. No, like,
Yeah, for real. Walk
I do
away and
see.
come back to an email later once you've thought it through for sure.
Mm,
Because that
yeah,
is definitely something where it's like, yeah, you do not want to just jump in and have that first reaction.
yeah, exactly. Like that's why we have email templates sometimes. Um, but so I would say the top three for me. Again, these are just like little pet peeves. Um, if you are, as a photographer, whatever stage you're in, if you rely solely on golden hour, um,
Mm,
I think you are really limiting yourself to the
yeah.
possibilities of, other lighting situations, and creating diverse images and galleries for your clients.
Mm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
it is so important to understand lighting. Like as a photographer, I know
Yeah.
we all understand that, and especially as a newer photographer, that's when I thought I could only shoot during golden hour because it was the only time
Mm,
that my images came out looking nice. Well, duh, because it's the only time of day where I really understood that type of lighting. So
yeah.
to be able to like grasp different types of like lighting
Mm-hmm.
situations and scenarios, I wasn't limiting myself anymore. Um,
Yeah.
and it
No, that's good.
learning new things can be difficult. Now,
Yeah.
it's not difficult because you're not good at it. It's difficult because it's new. And
Yeah,
I want
for
everybody
sure.
to remember that. Like it's okay for it to be difficult in the beginning, but you are going to grasp it.
Yeah.
Just don't let it.
Es- Especially with family photography, because especially if they're like doing a summer session and you have
Mhm.
littles, like they're not going to
Oof,
do golden hour because it's going to be like way past their bedtime. So
eight
you're
eight
going to have to
thirty,
like, yeah, you're going to have to, well, like some of those summer days, like golden hour isn't until like 9 o'clock. So
and
it's
I
like,
love it and hate it at the same time.
yes, exactly. But it's like, yeah, you got to work with that younger crowd and figure it out and
Mhm.
kind of work around that for sure.
Yeah,
For
I've
sure.
seen a lot. So many Facebook groups like, oh, my clients don't want to do a 7:30 golden hour shoot. How do I convince them that it's the best? Well, you don't, because it's not the
Mhm.
best for them. If you're going to force them to do another 7:30 shoot, you just see them during the session. You have no idea
Mhm.
what those kids are going to be like because of that session afterwards,
Yeah.
bedtime, bath time. And you know what? You probably just lost yourself a client. You probably lost yourself the potential clients for that inner circle. Um, so it's just important to never limit yourself,
Yeah.
to just shooting it one time a day.
Yeah, for sure. Totally get
Um,
that.
yeah. I think another thing that photographers sometimes do is that, and I'm guilty myself. I've had to train my brain to like not do this. Um, but I hated sending follow up emails to inquiries. Like they
Mm,
reached out once, I would send them my email, and then they would never get back to me. And I'm just like, oh, well, then they just hate me. Then it's okay.
mm,
Like they
mhm.
don't. It's never anything personal. Or if it is,
Yep.
like they don't tell you. Um, so sending follow-up emails, like do not
Mm,
ignore those inquiries. It's so important to like to understand where they're coming from. Like, hey, they might have like three
yeah.
little kids, they're busy, maybe they're working, they have school, they're trying to balance home life, like this is an additional thing, and they're going to
Yeah.
need that extra nudge sometimes, and it is okay. You're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where the CRM stuff comes into play really well, because sometimes when it comes in our inboxes and we've already answered an email, it's out of sight, out of mind, you know?
Yes.
I mean, there's systems that people can use. Like, I don't use the star system. I keep things unread in my email to like, no, I need to come back to it. I'm a
Yes.
big, like, I don't like to have the alert. But with my CRM, like, it's like, okay, I have like sections where it's like, inquiry, and then I move them and say follow up later if they don't hear back from them. So like those are
Ooh.
ones where I'm like, okay, I have a moment, like I'm going to follow up and say like, hey, have your needs been met? Have you been have found something? But I also
Mhm.
find something that you can serve someone well is if you're not available or if it's something you don't offer, is to have a list of other photographers similar to you in your
Mm.
personality that you love working with or love, and just say, yeah, here are some great like um alternatives to something
Mhm.
I'm not available with. I'd love to work with you next time, but here are some that um you may reach out to or they might be interested. And I think that's
Yes.
great for building community of photographers, and really honing in on that community over competition mentality, but also like still serving your community and being that photographer, not someone who's like, oh, like, sorry, I'm not available, bye. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's true.
feel, and that's the reputation you want to build. You want to be a helpful service provider. So
Hmm.
yeah, I agree.
No,
i
I
think we
I
have
love that.
I think we have time for one more. So let's kind of go into some of the things that people or photographers might not be doing because of lack of time. And I want to ask you what you think of like blogging in your client experience.
Yes. So huge, huge, huge. Not only because um, our clients love to see themselves on our websites and they can share that
Hmm.
with family and friends, they can post it on social media, bringing more eyes to your website and to your inbox, like inquiries and stuff.
Hmm.
But it's also huge for SEO.
Mm,
If
yes.
you are not blogging, it's not the end of the world. But if you want to see more inquiries into your inbox,
Yeah.
um, blogging it's huge. So earlier today, I actually went on to Google and I put in, like Lancaster, Pennsylvania family photographer, because that's where I'm
Mhm.
located in Lancaster, PA. And I'm just like, where do I fall on this Google list? Well, I'm fourth. I put in, Central Pennsylvania family photographer. I come up sixth, still on the first page of Google because of these. They're pulling those keywords from my
Mhm.
blogs and putting them so that people can see it. So when people are looking for photographers, they're going to see you
Yeah,
on the front page of Google.
for sure.
Um, and the closer to the first person on Google you are, the more eyes you get in front of. So it's so important. Um, Even though it might be a pain in the butt, there are time blocking management, like things that you can learn how to do. 45
Mm,
minute blogging, like blogs, get it out there, make it happen. Um,
yeah.
it is important. It's not the end of the world if you don't. But like I said, your
Yeah.
income will grow if you just start to blog.
For sure. And that's something that I just add to my workflow. So and this is
Hmm.
where like using like AI things like Imagine, where people are like, oh, they're going to
Oof.
deliver these like within an hour. But I mean, it takes it so I can spend more time on like blogging and things, you know? So it's
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm going to take these images, I'm going to blog them. They're going to be my sneak peek instead. So I'm going to blog this within a couple days and then get them excited and ask them to share that than to send them a direct image. So it's like using that so that they're sharing that on their social platforms. And again, this comes back to like the permission from the family, like if
Yeah.
they're giving permission. Um and just kind of sharing, but it also, not only that, it also makes you look in demand, so you're constantly sharing content and it's
Hmm.
like updating your portfolio. Instead of having to go in and do it, it's like showing people like, yeah, they're continually working, or I saw that person on theirs. That's a lot of business where I get where they're like, oh, I saw their photos and they were great, so now I want to have you as a photographer. um
Yes.
so
After
true, like
Yes,
such a
that
big
is
thing.
the after delivery marketing. Like those are
Yes.
tactics and techniques that we use so that we can still stay relevant and in those people's inner circles. Like, oh, did you just see like Jan's photographer just like posted her blog? Like, why don't like do you want to like look at it with me? Like, oh my god, her kids are so cute. Like, and
Mhm.
then on your blog post, as they scroll down, you'll have call to actions so that Jan's
Mhm.
friends might be like, oh, hey, I'm really interested in, booking, but giving them that call to action, like click here to see the next steps or do
Mm.
this to X, Y, and Z. That's going to be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, I wouldn't have thought of this on my own. Thanks for leading me this way. And then
Yeah,
you're booking people from Jan's inner circle. So, on top of
for
her
sure.
referral, her bragging about you, um, you can lead these people to inquiring with you just through blogs, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, and something I've always done as like a helpful tool, because I do crossover with like Pinterest and things like that, but also in
Hmm.
my blog posts I talk about the location because that's going to help you for SEO.
Yes.
Hopefully it's something you have permission to go to. You don't want to be like contacted by people like, you do not have permission to go there, please take this down, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
stay off
But
my family's
um
farm. Like,
yeah, yeah. um but definitely like putting your location not only helps potential clients know like, hey, I'd love to go there for photos, but second,
yep.
it's also going to help your SEO in Google search.
Hmm.
And when other people are going there and they're looking for images that were taken there, they're going to find you. So
Yes.
it's total, there's so much you can go on blogging, and I do have a lineup of another episode where we're going to dive into blogging and SEO a little bit further, but this is so great, I love it. It's definitely something that should be implemented into the workflow that's really going to attract clients for the future, for sure.
Yes.
But
Even if it can be overwhelming too. Like, oh, this is
yeah.
too much for me. But you break it down to like very basic steps. It is
Hmm.
not, and the things that it can do for you is wonderful. So don't be overwhelmed by blogging. It's a-okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of times there's photographers that are new and they don't know all the things they should be doing. So
Yeah.
they're like kind of like, "Oh, what can I get from it?" And if you're listening today and you're getting all of this and you've been taking notes, it's so great. Also Miranda has something she wants to offer to listeners today. So I'm going to let her share what that is, so you can get a little peek at to what you can experience after the listening to this episode.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
recently, I just finished creating my family experience course, and that is breaking down the 6 steps in creating that ideal client experience.
Mm,
A lot of the things that we talked about today, the after delivery marketing before they are your actual clients, and everything in the
mm.
middle. It's very meaty, and it's just basically going through every single step of the way that you can create that ideal client experience. You
Mm.
can bring in more money for yourself and for your business, and it's filled with so much good information. But of course, I'm a little biased. It's things that have helped me grow my business,
Yeah,
um, and I've helped how many other photographers with the same information. So a little
for
biased,
sure.
pretty good, but I'd love to share that with everybody.
Of course. And that's going to be included in the show notes today. So if you are looking for it, you can get that. And she's also going to offer $150 off of that course by using code Kara150. So go to the show notes, look for that, sign up for her family course, get all those good nuggets we talked about and more. But Miranda, before we end, where can everyone find you on the web?
Yes. So you can check me out Facebook, Instagram, Miranda Eorio photo. Um, that's the handle, the hashtag. And then if you are a photographer looking to grow that income, just looking for even free resources on my website, mirandaeoriophoto.com. We have a bunch of things, ranging from $0 all the way up to about 700.
Mm.
So start with the $0, free resources, it's packed with great information. And I hope to see a lot of you on social media.
So great. You can also find the Cameras and Coffee podcast at karahainesphotography.com/podcast or at Cameras and Coffee podcast on TikTok and Instagram, or you can join the Cameras and Coffee Insiders on Facebook. Miranda, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate you sharing all this information. This was so fun talking today, and I just am so grateful for you. And for now, listeners, until we talk again, I just wanted to say cheers.